I've been mountain biking a lot lately, Brian, and that's my like quarantine activity. And I had done it when I was younger, and I sort of stopped when I started playing music a lot more out.
Hmm.
And it felt at first so diametrically opposed to anything creative that I was doing. But then I realized after a little while, like I can problem solve when I'm out here. I can come up with like little parables and things and like kind of parallels between ethereal issues I'm trying to work through and physical issues I have to work through while I'm doing this. It's just kind of meditative. And some days I'm just pissed off and it's just fun to just blast down a hill as fast as I possibly can and come home feeling refreshed. And like after a little while, I was like, no, this is just fun. I just like this. And now, a few months back at doing it, I'm like, it does weirdly fit. But that seemed so wrong at first. And now the only thing I am considerate of is just not breaking a wrist. Like there's lines like that like, that
Yeah.
you can't necessarily make that fit in the box. Although I broke a knuckle one time and I just started
Wow.
playing slide guitar. And that was kind of an opportunity too. So it was like you can make shit work, I guess is the roundabout way I was trying to
Yeah.
say that.
I think that's interesting to bring up. I think we keep mentioning, well, what is the gap between, what is the gap that you bridge in being a sax player and a carpenter? Like, how do they have anything? Maybe, maybe he loves being a sax player because it gives him the complete freedom to get out that sort of like free expression and that free whatever it is, that free feeling he wants to get in his life, so that when he goes into the workshop to be a carpenter, which is all the most, I don't know, I don't want to say boring, but the most tedious, exact, like very different, like very, no room for, I make my carpentry the way I like to make. Like, no, dude, you have to make stuff exactly right, cut something exactly right, blah, blah, blah. I don't know carpentry.
Yeah.
And then with you, Matt, maybe instead of sitting writing a song, which can be solitary and sort of quiet and maybe not the most fun thing in the world, when you go mountain biking, you come back from mountain biking with all of that energy out and it's
Yeah.
gone and you can come back to it. When I was when I'm rock climbing and stuff like that, I come off from doing the rock climbing thing and I'm like, damn, I'm so ready to sit and not do
Yeah.
much. And if you're all wound up and you're all damn, I don't want to sit down and do nothing. I want to sit down and write. I want to go do something. I'm restless. But then when you eliminate that restlessness, you can actually go do the quiet thing. So
Yeah.
again, we keep talking about like how do the activities actually have anything to do with each other, and maybe they don't. Maybe it's how one of them makes you feel so that you can do the other one in a good feeling.
Yeah, totally. And that's kind of enough to me. I think
Totally.
that's kind of cool. And then there's also, like I mentioned, like the ability to practice physically, like more abstract concepts and even just types of discipline that you would need for something like, say, songwriting. Like I mean, I've never bouldered, but I'm kind of guessing that this might be true, but there's a certain level of focus, I imagine, that has to, like, do you have to kind of get into that headspace at certain points to
I
like
mean,
a meditative space almost?
I've only done it a little bit, but like I think the one example I could give is I did one of the big walls, not the big walls, but whatever. One of the like 30, 40 foot walls in Hadley
Hmm.
at Central Rock. And there's a point where you're like, oh, I have to stop. I have to bounce off this auto belay system and bounce down the wall and be fine.
Yeah.
I have to do that because if I fall, I'm totally going to die from this wall. And then you think, wait a minute, eliminate that thought because no, you're not because you're
Yeah.
strapped up to this rope thing and you have to like I'm gonna not fall, I'm not gonna fall, I'm not gonna keep going, I'm gonna keep going, I'm gonna keep going. So
Yeah.
basically it's some serious mind over matter business
Yeah.
where you tell yourself like your brain says you can't fall from this, you can't you can't, so you better stop. And
Yeah.
but you have to tell yourself no, I'm not. And then when we're talking about the actual low deal boulder business, it's strength. It's looking at a 45-degree wall like this and looking at it and go, I'm not going to climb on that. And then realize that once you get up to the handhold initially and then bring up your feet, lock your feet into some toe hook or something like that,
Mm.
all you have to do is really wrench on that one hand, get it nice, and then be ready to snap and go over to the next hole.
Yeah.
And you go, if you stand there and look at it, I can't do that. Once you get on that thing, you're like, man, I can't do that. But then you do that.
Yeah.
And then once you're here, you go, okay, I got to switch my feet and be ready to push off my left foot so I can bump up to the next one. And it's like, definitely, I don't know. I keep saying mind over matter. It's definitely a, like, believe in the process and believe that the next step will lead to the next step. And if you try to get from 1 to 5 without doing 2 through 4, you're not going to do it.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I mean is like, and also just finding a process if it doesn't appear that there is a process. Like, it's so weird when you're doing something like more intellectual, for instance, and you almost have to like build the playground and then practice all the techniques and then perfect them all and then implement them. And there's so many steps involved. But when you're like in a physical situation like that, it's just there. Like, you're on the playground already. You have to, like, it's just you and the challenge, and it simplifies it in a way that I find is very helpful for me, at least, to like take back to stuff that I have to conceptualize on a more vague level. And it makes me see those steps a lot more clearly and more quickly. Like, yeah, like if I'm biking, like it's the same thing where I have that fear of like, oh my God, if I'm going to die, like if I go down this hill, I'm going to actually die and this is going to be a problem. And then I realize I'm already going down the hill and I don't have a choice. So I better figure it out. Like, I better get into that flow state right now and figure out what the hell I'm going to do. Even if that is bailing, I need to make a decision right now. And that is something that I tend to think I'm doing when I'm in a creative setting, for instance. But I don't know if I had actually been doing it, at least as deliberately, until I started doing stuff like that. And it was the same with like if I'm running, like I'll sometimes put myself in a situation where if I'm like, I don't know if I can run this distance or whatever, like you just run it in a straight line. You don't do a loop, because at a certain point you're going to have to come home. And I don't bring my phone or anything either. So it's like, I'll get into that position where I'm like, well, shit, like I don't know if I can run this distance, but I also don't live here. So I better figure out some kind of a middle ground, and you figure it out and you make it work. It might not be pretty, but I find like those lessons are so important now for me. Like just the way that I process any kind of a problem or any kind of a brainstorming activity. It's something that now I'm seeing a lot of value in, but for so long I never like accessed that because I didn't realize I could do other stuff when I was in the mood to try those things. And it's been so liberating.